what it is.
Perfect, perfect.
You might see a lot of godly stuff here because it's my niece's bedroom.
So Naveen, glad to see you after a very long time. I think after that Thai event, you look more
Yeah,
glowing and more vibrant.
I just follow your vibes and your vibration that it keeps spreading. So, yeah, it's doing good. I thought it wasn't so long also. It was what, about a couple of months back?
A couple of months back, yeah, a couple of months back. It was very nice, huh? Always, whenever, to meet people with good, vibrant energy like you is always very, very important. And
Yeah.
uh, this is so useful, and I'm very, very happy that, we do speak, whenever we meet in the events and we talk and you share your great insights. And I'm in touch with some amazing, I'm blessed, I would say, to be in touch with amazing VCs like you, Mr. Kal Mehta. I think now he's quite busy with this Australian thing, Australian
Yeah,
quadrant.
that's
And
right.
I thought this wonderful insights that is available to me can also be available to many people.
Hmm?
And in that context, now I want to ask you one very interesting question. What was the key decision that influenced you to sell your company a few years back? I think you sold it for 800 crores, right?
Very good question. Yeah, it was about that time's dollar value, about $150 million kind of a deal. So you're right. It's about 800 to 900 crores that time. Uh, Obviously, it had some other conditions that is. But coming to specific question that you asked, uh, what made us sell the company? So there are two or three things. I would say it wasn't really a kind of a 100% sale because the 20% is still owned by some of the shareholders and equity partners. So 80% was sold that time. And the actual decision started because we had about three series of investment already done in our company. We had very interesting investors. We were one of the very early stage investment of Metrics Partners, which are one of the largest VC in India. And of course, Avni, as you would know, also come from a founder background with his Baji Dev, right? So amazing, brilliant guy. He was the first one. Along with them, we had Intel Capital, and then we had Lightspeed Partners, and then we had a few couple of more in between. So our purpose was to kind of give them an exit because, as I said, it's important for a founder to honor their words and the promoters to honor their words. So, objective was to provide, and they collectively owned about what 30% equity that time. So, our actual deal was to sell their equity. So, we had engaged a merchant banker to do that, but it so happened during the course of discussion and engagement with the prospective buyers, they wanted a controlling stake for certain reasons of their own. And eventually it became a larger deal from just the controlling stake to 80% sale of the equity. So it wasn't an intended decision that we are out there to sell the company. It was primarily the facilitation of an investor sale so that their returns, because they are in the business of investing and then taking the returns out and then reinvesting, right? So we had to provide that. But as I said, it so happened that it became in the process a sale of the equity, including I decided to exit my own stake as a founder. Of course, along with me, the other promoters still stayed and they still own 20%.
So was that a very conflicting decision? Because as a founder, it's like you invested your time, your money, your energy, and it's like your baby, right? There's a certain kind of an emotion that is associated. They say that, a founder spends more time in his office and with this product, especially dedicated founders like you, than their family members. Because every time they're with the family, also all that comes
Yeah,
is the systems and processes that they're going to implement the next day in the office. So was
no,
it
very good analogy.
part away?
Very good. No, no. So let me first clarify. Thankfully, I had amazing time building the company and right up to the exit. Every board member, every shareholder had always given me 100% of their backing. So the decision, there was zero conflict because I was in the driving seat of a decision making, despite other larger equity shareholders over a period of time with my dilution. But so first of all, there was no conflict. The decision was made what was right. Uh, you're absolutely right that was it an emotional decision or was it an emotional moment? Of course. And I would actually further clarify that it's not just baby. It sometimes feels like, you're a parent and you're marrying your daughter away. So the relationship continues, but you hope that your daughter will be taken care of, right? That's how it is. The relationship never ends in some ways because you are a parent of that particular son. So you're right, in a way, it's a baby, but it's a grown, but you're handing over to someone else now to take responsibility. And it's more in an Indian traditional context. So it's that kind of an emotion. So yes, it was a interesting emotional decision, first time being taken, but we always had one very simple philosophy, and it's good for other founders to know that when you are sitting in the company boardroom, or let's say with the shareholder, everybody had one simple rule: what's the best for the company that you would do? And we knew that the company has committed to the investors and also is ready for the next set of a growth that it needs. It will also need some more capital. So in all, the decision looked okay that we should provide the exit to the investor. We should also allow somebody else to come in with a larger capital to grow the company. This is how it is. Now, as far as my exit is concerned, so I think after the exit, I was still there for some time. At some stage, somewhere, I had this kind of a hunch that probably my vision and my goals going forward may not probably align to the new buyers. And obviously, like you said, in these situations, it's always good to let the new owners decide what they want to do, right? So that was the time I decided to step away. As I said, I had opportunity and I had luxury and I had also had advantage of getting amazing support of 100% from everyone. And I never liked any kind of conflicts to come in a way. So I rather decided to move away and let the new 80% owners decide their course of path, how they want to navigate.
Naveen, that is very, very insightful what you shared with me, and I'm sure it was going to benefit a lot of founders also. Like a lot of venture capitalists, I'm in touch with, they often say to me that, Karthik, you do workshops with all the top cops of the country, like IPS officers, IAS officers. You've done it with doctors. You're like, doing it along with AICT with almost like 3,000 plus colleges.
Yeah.
You'd have done it in the last 14 years in a more structured manner. And any number of people always have this complaint with me that, rather than freelancing, if you would have put it like a company, it would have been like it would be really worth millions. But for me, my paramount requirement has always been freedom. And I was very, very clear about exactly what I wanted from my life was absolute freedom. And this also came in shape of a book of mine.
Karthik, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Video is frozen.
Is my voice?
Sorry, I lost you. I lost you suddenly in between.
Okay, we get it edited. Okay. So, what was the last thing you heard from me?
You said that it was your passion, that's what you were doing, and it's not about the company, right?
It's more about the freedom. And so one thing which got reflected is, about 8 years back when I wrote a book that why at the age of 27, I made an extremely wise decision not to marry, but to be in relationship in love and grace. So it's very, very important that founders understand what is it exactly that they're looking out from life, right? Today there is always this mirror neurons in our brain where others are getting funding, so let me also chase funding and let me also get funding. Then others are they hear that somebody has exited with some several $1 million, and now they are frustrated just because they're in losses, and they know that they have raised till A, B, and now investors are no longer interested. And many people
I call that treadmill running, right? You run a lot, but you don't reach anywhere. You're still on the same place.
But tell me, Naveen, in your experience, this has been in my experience with all the venture capitalists that I've known. They say that it is the angel investors who usually suggest them the companies. Yeah. And among them, a lot of people don't even get angel investors because they don't know where to look for angel investors. And today, as we were speaking over the phone, you mentioned that for most of the people, the initial contact is always the family members and
friends
and family members, which is not a quite professional way, because there is always going to be, if they are going to lose the money, because they will be giving commitments and other things like that. So where is the point where people can look for authentic investors, authentic angel investors, and how do they know that? Obviously, everyone at the end of the day, until and unless you roll a product down the line in the market, you really do not know, what is a PMV, product market fit, or
Sure.
and what is going to be the acquired value of the product over a period of time. All of this thing comes with heavy levels of funding, which comes
Absolutely.
with a sense of leverage. Now, for example,
Yeah.
in tech companies, if you look at it, they have enormous levels of leverage from the venture capitalists to go on, keep on funding so that, they can go and acquire a larger market share and dominate that market completely. So this comes with the trust of that investor who has some game in the market. Like, for example, we'll not take any names, but you have seen that there is one tech company that had come and it's been so over evaluated, and eventually at the end of the day, it is the
Yeah.
public who has lost. But there's always been this pressure of, the VCs to, take it to the IPOs and all. But that's a completely different topic, I feel. But coming very
Yeah,
precisely,
I wouldn't mix up all these points. I would rather go one by one, actually. I mean, there are
yes.
already 4 or 5 points you mentioned. Let me first clarify some of them. See, first of all, each one of us are unique beings, despite having a lot of similarities, the way we think, the way we experience. So let's say for someone like you like to do something and you're passionate, and in many cases, you could treat that also as a commercial opportunity and exploit it commercially and make it business. In many cases, you don't want to because that's how you are, right? Like you've chosen to, right? Maybe if it was somebody else, he may have done it even commercially. I know a lot of people like you who have a complete outfit. He just does the podcast or videos or interviews and content, right? But you've chosen rather to enjoy and flow with the life, not to decide. And I won't say that you need to organize the source. I think it's a life, right? It's never organized. It has its own design. You should be able to provide what suits and what you like to the relevant audience, right? That you love to be talking to. So that's the first thing I would clarify. So now contrasting this, like you said, this behavior or a herd mentality or undue competition. That hey, this guy is out of the college, made this company, exited, made few millions. I mean, we are still thinking of a 6,000 to 50,000 salary a month. Why even go into that rat race? Why can't we do this? And then there is a complex that I'm superior than that guy. Why can't I do it? So I think we should say two things. One is that first, never forget who you are. What do you really love or what do you really like? These days, you're luckier enough because in India also the ecosystem and environment happens to be there to support you to be able to do what you like. And again, you have a choice to just keep it as a hobby or also convert it into a business. For example, for me, I was doing it because this was not just a business, but it was a passion. It was something I love doing it. And as I said, that's why I continue to do even the industry association, which we set up. Payment Council of India is the only industry which represent the digital payments. And now the FinTech Convergence Council, right? So it was a calling. It wasn't about commercial. It was about just, I love working with this ecosystem, seeing it grow and see it being nurtured and then kind of looking at those complex issues. So that gives you the biggest satisfaction. I mean, I remember even getting the check. Yeah, it says excitement when you see that message from your bank. But the reality is that doesn't last. But something like that, you build something, and when you meet people even from 20 years back and say, hey, I used your product. When I compare the excitement and the joy from this one line message one time versus that, even after 20 years, even when I'm not associated with the company, I can tell you for someone like me, the satisfaction I derive from the other side of somebody experiencing your product, talking and remembering you, probably motivates me a lot more. And that's what but that's who I am, right? Some people may feel that that one line message is my life goal and I want to do it. So I don't want to kind of criticize them, but I'm saying you need to know who you are, what do you want in life. Secondly, you talked about this funding, how you get it, different people trying to get it, friends and family conflict. So I would say the structured way that in India that it works for a funding now is that if you have a brilliant idea and if you're a first-time entrepreneur, right? Again, mind me saying using first-time entrepreneur, which means either out of your second job or maybe 2 3 years experience, and many times even out of the college, and you put together a business model. The reality is your contacts, your networks, unless you're from affluent family, is very limited. And you have something that you need to kind of go out and prove to the world. And the reality is that while you may be able to fund it, but in many cases you may not have adequate money to at least take it to a nearby go-to-market kind of a plan, right? At least create the product, take it to the first set of 100 to let's say 10,000 customers, and you'd need money. In that situation, I think it's very common for your trusted network to come and say, hey, I'm willing to support. And it's not that you're driving them. I mean, unless you really have missold them something, they genuinely believe. The reality is today, the awareness in community about startup funding and possible returns. And it's everyone, most of the people know it's a high return, but also a high risk game. So as long as there are people who trust you, as long as there are people who are 100% clear in their mind, like you said, that this is the money I have given to you and may not ever see it. And I'm still okay to live with that. And I'll still able to call you my relative and a friend. It's only those people you take that money from, not from anyone else. You never try and say that, hey, I'm setting this idea, it's great, I'll become a billionaire. Why don't you give me some money? You will make 100x. I think you never say those words. If you say, and if the investment has happened from there, whether you're successful or not, there are always going to be consequences of that. You never know what is the outcome, like you rightly said. So as long as you keep it honest, transparent, and if there is a both sides fully agree the risk and rewards, that's how it starts. Obviously, it could be anywhere between 1 to 5 crore. As soon as you build it out, I think you then start going and approaching angel networks because they want to see at least something tangible. They don't know you. So I'm not saying you don't get lucky and you don't get funding. Sometimes you may, if your area is very unique, something distinctly important. But I would say that's like 1 in a 10,000 case, right? That you may straight get a funding, even when people don't know you. In most cases, you need to have something tangible to show that I've done this, I've put together this work. Now I'm ready to go to market. I may need additional 2 to 10 crore, right? And that's when the angel networks start coming in, because then there are more parameters to be able to understand you, your business, what exactly you're talking, and then accordingly value and give you the money at that stage. So they give you the money. Now, these are the people, they help you to do your initial set of market research, initial set of market experiments, and roll out your product in the market and understand that if there is a market fit required, they help you with that. And then there are a lot of strategic investors also who come in that. I would rather say strategic individual or influencers who come in as expertise guidance to you in that phase, who kind of help you with this market fit. Like I do this work with about 15 companies now, for an example, right? It's primarily to guide them in an initial phase that how do you make sure that your product is the best product suitable to that audience. As you finish that phase, then you start, then your model is set, you start seeing revenue of 1 to 10 crore coming in and growing on a quarter-on-quarter basis, if not month-on-month basis. That's a time either you do a pre-series or pre-series A or around a series A, anywhere between 2 million to 10 million, right? And then A, B, C, D happen. Now, these are the people who would want to see maybe not necessarily profit, but you built a product for which there is a demand. You've executed it nicely. And there is a market which is large enough, which will give you in next 5 years a growth and potentially a business model which can be turned profitable, even if it takes longer. So you have a genuine business, that's what they test. And you have a genuine business for at least next 5 to 7 years will continuously grow if you keep executing it well, right? So that's the phase when the venture capital start coming in. And by the time, obviously, your A, B, C, D starts happening, that's also the time you start thinking that these investors who are coming in, right, the serious ones, sometimes they do provide exit to your very early stage investment, which are like angels, your friends and family. But most of these set of investors who put in probably between 5 million to 50 million or maybe 100 million in you, they need to be given exit. It's not about founders exit first. It's about your investors exit first. Founders may get exit, may not get exit. So I put it this way. This is an event. Exit is an event for investor. For founder, in most cases, it's just a milestone that he's achieved. So in some cases, like in my case, it happened to be also exit for me, but that's a rare situation. So I would say at that stage, you start planning for an exit for investors, not for yourself necessarily. And if you see listing cases, for an example, most of the large, big listed companies, the founders are still there running the show. The company has listed, the exit has happened for the investors. Or you sometimes have M&A situations where, again, in most cases, the M&A happens because of your product, business, and also the team, including the founders, right? So again, investors are usually given exit. Sometimes some liquidity is given to founders as well. So that's a time when things happen. As I said, there are some 10 to 20% cases where M&A happens to be a complete sale of business, including for founder. So founders have to understand very clearly that for you, you are in a business which is a continuous, which is passionate for you. You will want to do it. You will keep growing it. And exit for you is likely to be just a milestone, not necessarily a end goal or an event. So that has to be understood very carefully by a lot of founders and startup founders. And these phases and how you go about it from a build up to an exit phase. Thankfully, you have a great ecosystem supporting each of these phases now in India.
Now, you see, when it comes to like very, very value-added points that you shared, Naveen, but both you and I definitely know that, very rarely do we have, you know, few lucky people, I will say, or, few fortunate or gracious people who do not have a conflict with the board or with the venture capitalists, which is the pinch of a salt, one has to take in the industry, where one really has to be so composed within or so mature within that they're able to balance the interests of the company along with the interests of the investor. And here's where the big conflict happens, and you've seen any number of companies
Yeah.
where the very founders have been kicked off away from the company. And as you said in this conversation itself, that it is the interest of the investor, that has to be taken care of. And obviously, an investor is investing purely with an intention of making profit, an X amount of profit. And all the VCs, especially, they know exactly where they are entering and how they are going to come out. And obviously, some of their decisions will go wrong, and some of them will click.
So, Karthik, let me first clarify the point you made. I said for exit, your priority is investor. I never said investor interest comes prior to the company. No, I mean, that's completely different. Company's interest will always be the supreme most.
Absolutely.
Not even, right? When I
No,
say company, the company where there are employees, product, and your customers, that's supreme. Followed by, it's only when the investment exit comes, then you have to look at your investors first, then the founder's interest comes in.
no, you are
So these are
absolutely
different things.
no, correct.
Yeah,
What you said is absolutely right, Naveen. What I'm saying is, when it comes to an investor, from an investment point of view, he's looking at his returns, basically.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So this kind of a balance that a few founders like you make, probably, I think there needs to have a deep level of emotional training, or some level of self-rejuvenating practices that every founder has to go through, which I feel we can keep in another podcast
So
exclusively.
Karthik, that's a job you're doing already, right? And you should do it for your startup company. See, I think it goes back to where we started, right? I think unfortunately or fortunately, despite India being the land of spiritual gurus and everything, I mean, we are the philosophy for the world. I think a lot of our generation, while a lot of them are catching up, but many of them have forgotten. I think it starts with you knowing yourself and being honest, being genuinely practicing honesty and integrity with who you are. It starts from there. The problems that you are talking about, they're symptoms which are originating from that you as an individual. The reality is that this who comes first starts coming in the moment somebody is looking at one particular interest higher than all other things, keeping aside. So somewhere either you have created an impression in an investor's mind and asked for a very higher valuations with certain promises where there's a pressure back, right? Versus you being honest that this is what I believe in it, and we do a deal where both are genuinely happy and both understand this is the right deal to do with all the clear risk, right? No one knows what will happen, neither the investors nor the founder. And ultimately, if the interests are aligned, and one rule they have to keep repeating to all of them, including founders to themselves, that when we are in a boardroom where the investors usually discuss, the company interest comes supreme. It probably could be even written on the board that whatever decision you make, please keep the company first. And when I say company, within the company, it's always the customers, employees, that in that kind of order. Then the investors, etc. But the company interest being, and I think this was a one golden rule our previous chair told us that when you are in this room in the board meeting, I am not the promoter, you are not the founder, investors are not investor. We are kind of working for this company. What's the interest of this company? We have to do that right. And trust me, and you know it, Karthik, already, right? Because you preach everybody that. If your company is doing right, if you're taking all the right decisions for the company, why wouldn't you have the better outcomes? You would always have. Unless somebody has misled something or somebody's integrity or honesty is in a question. I'm not saying which side. It could be either side or both. I'm not getting into that with any specific cases, but I'm saying most cases the conflict happens when there's a greed both sides, when there is a dishonesty both sides, and there is a integrity issues both sides. It can never happen one side. Some strange reasons there could be sometimes when there is a one side issue, your documents are not signed properly, or your deals are not done properly, or unless you've not smartly kind of put together your plans, etc. But those are rare cases. I mean, unfortunately, those kind of cases I'm seeing more like a, let's say, large companies trying to find more information about you as a disguised M&A for a corporate espionage. In fact, we are seeing that as a new era in a lot of companies. And we are seeing that large companies coming, showing you a mirror, getting inside you, trying to get all the details out of you, of your key clients, key employees, and silently trying to, pose them out. And then say, I'm not doing a deal, and then saying, hey, there are some issues with the company. Now, again, these things can't go on because you can do it once, twice. Eventually, the ecosystem would learn and nobody would want to work with you. So I just hope people understand that. But going back to the start that you said, right, that we have to understand ultimately who we are, what we're doing, what is our real happiness lies. Those numbers looks exciting. My personal experience is that's not the true kind of sure short path to the happiness, at least. Nobody has ever proven it. You are on that path. You already understand that. How does the happiness work versus the financial security? Both are important, but not necessarily linked in a 1:1 proportion.
Correct. So I think this topic can just go on, Naveen. There is no end to, conclusive end, because it needs some substantial, amount of time. Where can people find, in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, especially, when they don't have access to Thai networks, when they do not have access to the people, angel investors, where is it important that, a certain kind of an ecosystem be created in the tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 cities for people to,
I think you're absolutely right. So there are 2 or 3 things. Yeah. So one, yes, more things need to be done, but we should say we are fortunate enough that now you have IITs, even IIMs getting expanded into even those tier 2, tier 3 cities, and even more colleges coming in. So first of all, they have their own ecosystem and network. Secondly, we have companies like venture capitalists who have gone ahead and created an ecosystem of both investors and startup companies to create that facilitation. And lastly, which is the most important, that today, wherever you are in the world, as long as you have internet connectivity, and there are people like you who's creating content, there are many similar, let's say, subjects and the experts who are putting out a lot of interesting stuff. It's about your curiosity and it's your own effort that you want to learn on a subject. You could actually learn anything. You could be master of anything. I mean, I remember even 20 years back, this wasn't possible. You didn't have so much of option and so many things available. And now you have things like ChatGPT coming in. You could even learn so many things. You could do so many things. So I would say you're right. I wouldn't say not more things need to be done. Obviously, you still need human interaction. You need experienced people to talk. But I would say there is at least a substitute available. Please make good use of it. And I'm sure the ecosystem, the way it's growing, it will reach there. Especially during COVID, if you see, a lot of smarter people who are working out of metro cities have already moved back. And maybe as they are listening, and if they are listening, I'm sure they will create their own network to educate, to support, to help nurture the next generation. Because many of them have stayed back to work from there, and it's acceptable practice now. Like you work out of Goa half the time, right? In a very simple place. So, I mean, in that community, you could still help while you're there. So I think things will move there.
True,
and
Naveen.
It's improving.
Absolutely, Naveen. So, Naveen, as I was telling you, it just got disconnected.
Yeah, no problem.
Everybody needs to plan an exit, and only when you plan an exit consciously would you ever know, what is it that you're going to do next. And sometimes you do it very consciously, and sometimes it happens quite unconsciously. As I was telling you, in my case, I decided at the age of 33, I'm going to, quit, chasing for work and all. And all I had a vision was to have a decent luxury car, a nice space near the beach. I mean, for one person who's decided not to marry, what all he would want, and who's just interested in living in love and in grace. And all I wanted was, play a couple of rounds of golf. So the vision was very clear, and to travel certain countries. And I've been to over 60 plus countries. And for all of this, my kind of a work really facilitated that, being a coach, being a leadership coach, and all of that. So the vision was quite clear. And I see that in many founders like you who are very, very clear exactly, what do they want in life. As a founder, do you have a suggestion to share to people as to what would be the right time to exit, and how do they know that? Is there an inner calling, or is it like the investors telling you, hey, it's time, we need I mean, there has to be a different topic, Naveen. I know you are always diplomatic, but we will have a different topic.
I thought I'm less diplomatic, but I mean, okay, I wasn't trying to sound diplomatic in any point, except sometimes there is not a single course for every horse. That's the only place where I
You
would
are a
look at
thorough
it.
gentleman, Naveen.
Right.
You
So
are.
this because in a spirituality, I've seen that different people try to follow different path, and some people follow a one institution. Sometimes it may work, most cases it doesn't. So it comes from there. So I would just clarify that I wasn't trying to be diplomatic. I genuinely kept options open where there needs to be options open, where you need to explore. But in this case, I wouldn't call the word exit. I would say, I think what you're trying to say is that you should know when to put an end to a rat race that you've been running. We all have to run, right, for certain objectives in our life, right? When do you put an end to it? How do you decide when is the time to put an end to it, right? You never exit from life. Let me put it this way. You're living, right? You're enjoying the life. You're actually living. When you're in a rat race, you're not living, you're living for others and you're driven by others. So the way to bring that control back is like you did, right? Having your goals clear, life goals, not necessarily financial goals. What do you want in life? Because you can never have a running goal. You need to have a goal that needs to be fixed much earlier in life. Ideally, when you start a company, when you start a career, you need to have an end game that, okay, I would want to kind of take it to this level. After that, whatever happens, I may or may not work, and you don't have to be rigid, but being conscious of that right away. That's an end state for me in this, at this stage. Probably that's when I would want to kind of step out and do something else. Or let's say in some cases it could be giving back to society. In some cases it could be pursuing a different passion. In some cases it could be just doing nothing. I mean, depending on what kind of person you are. So having that clarity like you have is absolutely important. And that's very similar in my case. I had that clarity. I knew when to stop. So I don't do any operational role. It's been like 7-8 years already that I've stopped doing that. So it's very clear. Having set the goal, it's important. And let me tell you, it's not easy to stick to that decision. It's the most courageous decision. In fact, I remember a lot of people who have those goals clear, but they get addicted and tempted. They can't stop. It's not in their nature to stop. And I think they don't realize it themselves. So you need to be very careful that your mind will play your mind games with you. And most of the time it's, okay, TK, now I've said this, I've achieved this. Maybe I can do 2 more because I'm good at it. So why are you doing it? Keep asking yourself. I mean, you've done it, you've already proven. Are you doing to prove to others? But have you proven yourself to yourself first? Because actually you're disproving yourself first by doing that. You set up a target for yourself, you made a promise to yourself, you're breaking that promise to yourself just to keep and look good to others. So you have to be very, very clear, ask these questions that am I doing it because of my competitive spirit? Like another example, I love running for an example, right? It's not necessarily me, but let's say there is an athlete. So they are very good at it, they get good at it. Then they set a goal that it could help them commercially as well. So you run up to, let's say, Olympics, and maybe say, okay, I'll run for 3 Olympics, 2 Olympics. And then whatever may come, you will stop. But sometimes you say, okay, I've done 3, why not 4? Why not 5? Why not 1 more? And you have people around you, they'll always say, yeah, you're great, you can do 1 more. You forget that they are doing it because they also get fed in the process. They also get that advantage in the process. You probably are a lot more valuable to them than to yourself. So that becomes a challenge. You need to be able to discern those differences and say, hey, I have done this because I liked it. I will not stop doing it, but I don't need to compete anymore. I may just go and still run, maybe on a beach, maybe on a hill that I like, but only for myself, just to enjoy it. I don't have to compete in a life anymore, right? And just enjoy my running. Because that was the first reason probably you started running. So to go back to that life circle and be strict with yourself, because I can tell you 99 of the times, 99.99% of the time, you will waver at that time when the final decision comes. But there are so many compelling reasons triggering you to not stop those things. So that's the real moment, that how strong you are in your will, how strong you are and honest you are to yourself, not to others, right? So that's the very important part. And having done it, lastly, again, like you said, it's not end to a life. It's not exit from the life. It's just about really living the life that you always wanted to live. And you will only realize it when you're off that treadmill, when you're off that competition book, when you're off that day-to-day mindset. Because it's like something, when you're doing that, you're on a drug. You're simply an addictive person. You don't know what you're doing. It's only after that detoxification, then you realize, hey, what the hell was I doing? Did I really need to do that long, that much? I was just hurting myself more. So, these realization come in, it takes time. Sometimes it comes early, like person like you're blessed that way. So good for you. Sometimes it come too late. I mean, and then all the things that were good for you start becoming a bad issues for you, or a bad publicity for you, or problems for you rather than a solution. Anyway, I can go on, so I would rather stop here. But broadly, I think 3 key points that I just covered. Have a goal. Make sure that you decide when you've decided, and make sure you still live. You're not retiring, or you're not kind of exiting from life.
I feel it's all about the mindset, Naveen, to cultivate it and to groom it is extremely vital, because having a mindset of the kind of clarity that a few founders like you have, like I see in you, I see in Carl, I see in many other people. I mean, you can't be selling a company in billions of dollars without having that level of clarity, where people will just end up saying that iski to lottery lag gayi, to he once but personally, having known, I know what all you people go through, and I would never want to do that ever in my life.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
absolutely.
I don't want to spend sleepless nights. I don't want to be. How many worrying nights you would have had?
So, Karthik, on this point, I have many time young founders coming to me. They'll say, "Okay, I have this company. I'm 100 million valuation. This guy has done bad. Worse than me is getting 500 million." And I keep telling him that, boss, why are you trying to live his life? You have yours. You have yours in control. You do exactly like you said. You don't know what nightmares he's running in the night. He may have got 500, but how does it change? First of all, is a responsibility, because if you've taken 500, you'll have to return 500 plus plus. You've taken 100. How much you really need it? If you needed 50, you already got 100, and you're happy with the business growth. You're doing it nicely without any complexity. You should be happier person, or rather happiest. But this peer competition, or this competitive spirit in us, which is there for survival, while we're already above survival, needs to stop. We need to be in control. So, this is a very important issue with a lot of founders.
Absolutely, absolutely. Always a pleasure, Naveen, talking to you.
It's a pleasure.
It's such an amazing time, whenever I speak with you, and looking forward for having more insightful conversations whenever we meet, and hope sometimes we can meet like this.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Good day,
Thank
Naveen.
you.
Very wonderful
Have a
time.
good day.
Good day.
My pleasure. Bye.